Welcome to Let's Talk Midlife Crisis with your hosts,
Ashley
and Tracy.
This episode is sponsored by Skin by Paige. Please visit her on Instagram, skinby_page, and check out her specials for all your facial needs.
For today, we're going to go ahead and focus on something that has been a big topic in our conversations, is what happens when you do get into this midlife crisis age. And one of the things that a lot of people don't talk about, a lot of women don't talk about, is menopause.
Yes.
And how, your body's changing and everything is changing as you become older. Luckily, we have each other and we have our our group
crew, yeah.
of,
We're
support.
all around the same age. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
So we can talk about it to each other and share what we know and what we learn and what we find and how we're feeling. But a lot of people out there don't have support.
Well, and it's
or people that understand
that they
do have support, like maybe a partner or spouse. But
it's not something that we were really taught about. Parents didn't talk. Your mom didn't tell you about it. They didn't teach you about it in health class. They didn't. There's all these questions around what's happening to me, and I think for a lot of women, it's scary to start asking people because it's never talked about.
Well, even when you go to the doctor, they don't really say anything. It's kind of like a clinical, you're perimenopausal, or you're, menopausal.
Or you have anxiety, let me write a prescription. You have depression.
Yes.
I think it's great that we have a group of people that are all experiencing this kind of at the same time, and we can talk about it.
Yes.
I think more people need to.
I do too.
I'm screaming from the mountaintops.
I think we all are. And I talk to friends and they tell me what's going on in their lives or what's happening or mostly how they're feeling and things. One of my friends called me just about a week or two ago, very recently, and said that she went to a doctor, a psychiatrist, and they prescribed her psychotic medication.
Oh my gosh.
Seriously. And I was sitting there on the phone with her and I just was letting her talk. And then at the end, she told me that she went and picked up her prescription, but she didn't take it. And she went home and Googled it and found out what it was and all the side effects and everything, and she hadn't taken it. And I was like, thank goodness she didn't take it. What you need to do is make an appointment with your gynecologist. And talk to them because she's in that age, 45 plus. Hi, Sarah G from the Bay Area. I'm calling you out. And ultimately, sadly enough, so we talked about it and I said, it's menopause. And the light went off and she was like, I thought of that. It's funny you say that. I thought about it, but I wasn't sure. And then she went on to say, so we had worked together for many years, and then she went on to say, I kept thinking about you and how I used to be so angry-ish all the time. But at that time, when she first started at my old agency, I was trying hormone therapy.
Oh.
And it was like a roller coaster ride. So I was trying to find,
can be really difficult.
And whatever what was happening wasn't working. So I think I had too much testosterone or something, but it was, it just was crazy. But anyways, unfortunately, she ended up canceling her gyno appointment and started taking the meds, the psych meds. She says she feels better, so I'm happy for her. But honestly, I can't help but feeling that underlying, it's probably her body and it's changing.
Right, but I also think that not only does it affect you, our organs and then our body just changing in general, but your mental clarity and
that's huge.
And just getting really short with people and being irritated by, it's kind of like PMS constantly.
On steroids.
Yeah, exactly.
And a roller coaster, right?
So it's not, some people think, I'm going crazy.
Yeah.
And they're not. Their bodies are just changing.
Yeah. And like I said, I had went through, when I was trying out, I know that a lot of people are pro hormones.
Right.
And I'm so supportive. I was lucky enough to be in an office full of women, mature women. So I had a huge pool of people to share with. And it was funny. Half of them were pro steroids, you know, and half of them were anti-steroids, or hormones, I should say.
Hormones, yeah.
But, yeah, and I ended up trying them for probably a couple of years, and I had massive facial hair starting to grow. Like, literally, I could go like this, and I had sideburns.
Wow.
So I had laser hair removal on my face, but I couldn't and not everything was clicking together. Like
fuzz.
What was happening?
That's what I have. I do the dermaplane though for it.
Yeah.
But it's insane.
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
I have never been like a hairy person, and I'm still not overall.
Right.
But my face, I get this peach fuzz, and it's my entire face. It's not just my lip or my chin, or it's my entire face.
But back to the, you know, hormones versus, you know, just aging naturally, I guess you would have to say. I don't know. But hormones didn't work for me. But I have so many friends that it works for.
Yeah.
And one of the things that scares me about it is that I was told you have to take them forever.
Right. I have heard that once you start, you can't really stop. There's a lot of other things that they warn you about before you start, or they should. But this is what I've heard anyway. You should always check to make sure you don't carry the gene for breast cancer, because it can enhance risk of breast cancer.
Okay.
It can also cause some other psychological issues. So there's a lot of different things that you want to be aware of before you start it, I think.
Yeah.
I still don't know that it's something I'm willing to try, but...
Well, I don't know. And I think it's everybody's individual choice about that.
Right.
And I think I was so desperate to try to find something.
Yeah.
And like I said, at work, half of the women, you know, there was like 3 to 5 women that were on steroids regularly, or I keep saying steroids, hemorrhoid, or...
Not hemorrhoids. They're all
oh my gosh, there's so many women that... you know, are on the hormones, and then that were pro for it, and then so many that weren't. And I was desperate, so I tried it. And, of course, I have some kind of, I don't know if it's an imbalance.
You're like the 1%.
The 1%. But they're like, 1%. And I went to more than one doctor, and they're like, okay, here is a normal person's, and this is their cycle of their hormones, but yours does this. And so, so effectively, when they were giving me testosterone, and then something else, progesterone maybe, I can't think of if it would have been anything else, but
probably
it was turning into testosterone.
Oh.
So I was like amping out with testosterone.
Okay, so
therefore,
was that what caused your facial hair?
I think so.
Because
nobody ever told me.
Yeah,
I just have to guess.
I mean, I'm not on hormones, so
right.
Mine's just naturally happening. And I'm really hoping, I remember when I was younger, my grandmother would get a mirror, a hand mirror, and tweezers, and stand in front of the window for the natural light and pick her hairs out of her chin. And I'm not sure how old she was at the time, but I would have to say she was at least in her 60s.
Yeah. Women and
I
tweezers
just remember
on their
thinking,
face.
I hope that never happens to me. I have so many, I would be there all day with tweezers.
I know.
And fortunately, they're very blonde. I mean, they're very light, and they're very fine.
Yeah.
They're not coarse. I do get one black coarse one right here on my chin, but I'm hoping at some point it goes away. I don't know.
You know, and
just a phase?
I had laser hair removal.
Oh, right.
So I already had, always had this big dark mustache, right?
Okay.
So, and I was always afraid to shave it, like it was going to grow in thicker.
They're cool to have now. Have you seen the Amazon
commercial?
commercial?
I can't watch it anymore. It's gross.
It's terrible.
I focus on her teeth. If I happen to look, I'm like, look at the teeth.
I know.
But mine was seriously like that, sadly enough. So I had, when I was doing my laser hair removal about 10 years ago, I had it on my face as well, but like mustache and chin, right?
Yeah.
Because at that point, those were my problem areas. And then, like I said, something happened through menopause or through my hormones. And literally, it was down my face, and it wasn't just peach fuzz. You could go like this. And I was like, you're looking horrible.
It had to be the testosterone.
It had to be the hormones. I don't know. But so I go back to my laser hair people, and my mustache is growing back in. I'm getting chin hairs.
Oh.
And luckily, because I had it done, so I'm on like a maintenance plan now.
Yeah.
Or I was, or I could go on it. But they were like, it's age and it's your hormones.
Oh.
So on top of everything, you know, it's like bam, bam, bam.
Isn't it humiliating? There's this show called The Checkup.
Yes.
It's a doctor, I forget his name. So he did, on episode 2, he covered menopause, and 2 amazing women were on the show, Oprah and Maria Shriver.
Yes.
Adorable. They have such a cute friendship.
I watched it, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was super
really
adorable.
Super cool.
Yes.
But it was really interesting. I learned a lot about A, remedies for some of the symptoms that you have, and B, things that come from menopause that I didn't realize. I mean, they kind of talked about there's some kind of tie, and they're doing a lot of research still on this, but there's a tie with dementia. And I guess they can detect when you have dementia before you actually have symptoms. And they're finding it in women that are going through menopause, which is really terrifying.
I watched it too, and the whole time I watched it, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like, me too. Yeah. That's me.
Yeah.
And everything they said was, I could relate to it in my life. And one of the things that got me, outside of the dementia, because my mom had it, you know, and her whole side of the family, my uncle, her mom, and it's a horrific,
terrible disease.
But so in addition to that, how your brain actually shrinks.
I know. I was freaking out.
It's like, oh my gosh, well, no wonder, because I literally feel like that's what's happening.
We're stupider and stupider.
I'm not a sponge. I feel like, you used to be a sponge, and you just take in all this knowledge and everything, and I'm lucky to remember what I had for breakfast yesterday.
Oh, it's terrible. I started taking courses for real estate, and I'm like, why am I not absorbing this information? What is wrong with me? I mean, it's been a long time since I've been in school, but come on.
Yes.
And then just the fogginess, too,
Yeah. Oh, big time fog.
Yeah.
And I loved it when Oprah said that she ended up quitting her book club, because I think everybody who knows Oprah, which is everybody, knows that she had a book club.
Right.
But I didn't realize that that's why she ended it.
Yeah.
And again, it was that big light bulb
reading these
aha
books.
moment.
She couldn't focus and absorb the information. Yeah.
Because I have honestly been dealing with that as well. And then you just try to write it off.
Right.
And then with the whole COVID thing, nothing.
That's what's so hard for me, is because I started experiencing symptoms right about that time, and I did get COVID a year after the breakout.
Right.
But I never. And just the one of the things Oprah talked about too was listlessness.
Yes.
And as soon as she said that, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
But I really attributed it to the pandemic, because my life changed drastically. As you know, I traveled 3 weeks out of the month, and you did too.
Me too, yes.
And all of a sudden it just stopped.
Yeah.
And I was home. And at first I thought, oh, this is really nice.
Yeah.
But then I went through a phase where I'm like, I don't know what to do with myself.
Right.
I'm starting to drink at noon.
Right.
Like, I'm bored.
And I wanted to. I thought, what's wrong with me when I wake up in the morning and just want a Bloody Mary?
What?
Let's start our day with a Bloody Mary.
It's just, it was such a drastic change and so abrupt that I kind of felt like I was just, the listlessness was from that.
Yeah.
And I was kind of depressed, and I was trying to find my new normal.
Yeah.
And it really hasn't improved all that much, which is, again, I'm not traveling still. Everything's virtual now.
Me too.
But I've really,
I'm not either.
I've acclimated to that. Like, this is my new life.
And
but
you used to work from home before the pandemic.
Yeah. So that wasn't really a change for me.
You're kind of like the OG of the work from home.
Right.
Yeah.
But I've kind of felt like, okay, this is my new normal. I'm good. Why do I still have this listlessness? What is wrong with me? And then as soon as they said it on the show, I was like, okay, it's the menopause. It has nothing to do. I mean, it might have a little bit to do with the pandemic and the change in lifestyle, but I definitely think that most of it's the menopause. And I there's no excitement. There's no drive. There's no. I used to be such a busybody, and I was constantly like, "Let's do this. Where's my next project? What And now I'm just kind of like,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I've tried everything when I wake up, like from turning the shower to all the way cold, to get that little jolt, because I don't drink coffee. I wish I did, to get that caffeine boost in the morning. But I used eucalyptus in my shower. I tried all kinds of things, but I wake up and I feel exhausted already.
Yeah. And your body's achy
and no motivation and blah.
Yeah, zero motivation.
Blah. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's definitely, I think, something you just have to kind of figure out how to work through. And fortunately, I really haven't even talked to my doctor about it yet, but I won't take any prescriptions for it unless it's absolutely necessary. But I don't think I'm in a place where I need to. It's not, clinical depression or anything.
Right. Well, you don't know, right? You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, that's true. But I do think, generally I'm fine. I'm a happy person.
Right.
I just need to figure out this phase and kind of work through it. So.
Yeah, it is kind of a phase, isn't it?
I think
feels
so.
like life is all just about different
I really
phases.
Hope so.
Right? I know. We're going to come through on the other side.
I think at some point the old Ashley will be back.
Right? I know. We all hope that's the case.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting, too, after watching Oprah, I really learned a lot from watching that episode. Like I said, it just struck home with me. But the fact that the doctor said that they don't really have any research on women.
It's terrible.
Because they stopped doing research, back, in the 70s? I don't recall specifically, but 60s, 70s.
It was 60s, 70s. They were giving a prescription to women that were pregnant that were having difficulty sleeping at night.
Right.
And then they discovered years later, as these children were being born and growing up, that they had issues because of and they tied it back to the medication.
Right.
And so they stopped, and I guess it was a clinical trial.
Yeah.
And so they stopped doing it.
Clinical trials.
Yeah, and they just didn't put any pregnant women on anything, and everything just kind of stopped. It was like, we're not going to do any of this research anymore.
Yeah.
And so here we are, Well,
40, and I think to that point
later.
Is, even when you go to the doctor, they will diagnose you, but not necessarily give you a lot of helpful avenues or options. Right. I just think it's very limited what you hear even from your doctor when you're diagnosed.
Well, and the doctor mentioned too on the show that I don't know if this just is for GP education or, obviously I guess if you go into gynecology you're learning specifically about women and what they go through, but as far as GP, if you go to your general practitioner, they get like 1 hour of education on menopause.
Right.
They have no clue.
Yeah.
That's all they get in all the 10 years they're in school to become doctors. And so they don't know. They're not educated well enough. And it even sounded like to me when he was talking about this that even the gynecologists don't have.
Exactly.
Because again, they're not doing the research.
Yeah.
They don't
have any data. They have no data. In a world that we live in, and that data is more valuable than gold. They don't have any data on
which is
what happens
crazy.
To women as they age.
And there is a very wide range of symptoms. So there's no cookie cutter, this is what you have, because everybody's different. My mom didn't even know she went through menopause until she got her thyroid tested. She was having some health issues, and they were like, menopause is in your rearview mirror. And she's like, what?
Yeah.
She had a hysterectomy, so that she didn't have that physical symptom of going, this is changing.
Right.
But she had no other symptoms either that made her realize that she was actually going through menopause. So she was very fortunate. Unfortunately, I didn't get that. But,
right.
But then
you're
there's some
everybody
women who
is
have
different.
a very drastic.
Yes.
They have their symptoms are terrible and
different levels.
But I do think there are key symptoms that if you go into a doctor, why not just check that first? Yeah. You know what? This sounds like it could be menopause. It might not be. But let's rule it out first.
Exactly.
Why are they not doing that?
I believe it's as simple as blood tests and checking your hormone levels,
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but I've had multiple people recently just talk to me about, what's happening in their lives and how they're feeling and different things and maybe anxieties or what have you. Like I said, Sarah G from the Bay Area.
Right.
And when I asked her about her psychiatrist, you know, prescribing the, psychotic, thank you, medication. Yeah. I found out that it was a woman.
Oh, interesting.
And in my mind, I'm thinking, and it didn't even dawn on her that's interesting. You know, it might be menopause.
Right.
And that's some pretty hardcore medication.
Absolutely.
Not maybe just a Xanax to sleep. Yeah. You know, that had a lot of side effects to it and stuff. But right now she's doing well, and it's been helpful for her. But also, she's unable to stop taking that medication. Once you start taking it, you just can't stop.
Yeah, you have to wean yourself off of it, I'm sure.
Yeah. I don't know. But yeah, there's just so much. And actually so much that I learned from watching just that episode with Maria Shriver and Oprah.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful to hear people talking about it, and especially for women of their stature.
Yes. Absolutely.
To try to bring it to the limelight and, you know, discussion at the table, right? Of, you know, what happens to women, and that it's okay.
It's everybody.
And there's,
famous, not famous, rich, poor, black, white.
And that there are ways to, you know, to medicate yourself. And outside of hormones, I believe that there are also other natural pathways to do it. I tried some things like yam cream and all that kind of stuff. I couldn't slather enough on my body to, you know, make that work. But again, I'm probably just that anomaly person. And ultimately, I went through a couple years of a roller coaster ride of trying to stabilize on hormones and wasn't able to do so. And I just stopped. But a lot of it
probably felt worse.
In the back of my mind was the fact that I didn't want to have to do that for the rest of my life. So, and also a very dear friend of mine that's 12 years older than me. So in her mid to late 60s now, has been doing these hormones, but not only for a woman of her age, but doing them for a woman of, you know, maybe that's in their 30s or in their prime of their life.
Oh,
so she is still menstruating.
What?
Yes. And she is now in her latter 60s. And I was like, I don't want that.
Oh
like,
my
I
gosh.
don't want that.
And that's because of the hormones.
I believe so. It's not natural that happens.
No, that's crazy.
At one point I even asked her, can you get pregnant? Like,
yeah, like that's terrifying.
Like, she paused for a minute. She's like, no. But that's what entered in my mind, and I was just kind of like, I don't want to do it. They have pellets that are inserted into them. So once you get stabilized on hormones, so that you don't have to go regularly, they insert pellets into you.
And they just, they like time release?
And you go like once a quarter.
Interesting. Wow.
So, yeah. But I chose not to go down that road.
Ablation done a couple years ago, because that was when I really started having some issues with that part of my body.
Right.
And it was like, I got to do something. I can't live like this. And rather than do a hysterectomy, we decided to try the ablation. So I don't have a period, at least not a normal one. Every once in a while I'll have a little bit. So I think I'll be able to, I still cramp sometimes, so I think I'll be able to notice like
that's exactly what I was thinking.
They're not as bad as they were.
Even.
I think so. You know, like I said, I do, like I will spot here and there.
Okay.
But like a month ago, I think, I was like every week having a period. Every single week. And I'm like, this is really weird. And a couple of those weeks, I had terrible cramps, and I really haven't had bad cramps since the ablation. So there's definitely some changes going on again. Right. You know? So I'm hoping that's stopped and has for a while now. So I'm hoping, they say if you don't have a period for a year, you're good.
Yes.
So I'm hoping this is the beginning of that year.
It took me a few years, several years to get there. I would go 6-8 months and then wham. And then I'd have to start over.
How old? Yeah, that's terrible. How old were you when you first started getting symptoms?
You know, I was in my 40s.
Okay.
And I remember going to my annual, and I was in my 40s, and they said, And I believe the term, I'm almost positive that they used, but this was a while ago, was premenopausal.
Perimenopause.
I thought she said pre. I don't remember it peri.
It's, perimenopause.
Yes. And I was
and
like,
that's
okay.
the beginning, the early
Yes.
stages of menopause. I was in my early 40s. I would say I was probably around 40, maybe 39, 40 when I first started getting symptoms.
It was in my early
which is
40s.
Actually young.
Yeah.
I've heard.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and then I was like, okay.
I also heard it can take up to 10 years.
Yes. Well, then I was like, okay.
I'm like, well, let's get it over with.
I have this. Like, give me something. What are you going to give me? I expected her to give me a prescription or like a shot, and she didn't. But that was way. When you said 10 years, it was probably
about
close
10 years
to 10 years by the time it was all said and done. And I actually just recently looked up, and I remember when it happened because we went to Paris. And that was 2017.
Yeah.
So 18, 19. So 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So I was in my early 50s when that happened.
Okay.
Finally.
Interesting.
But it was and like I said, it was in my early 40s when I was first, quote unquote, diagnosed with it.
With the early
But it was a rocky road those 10 years. And like I said, a roller coaster.
It has been.
And
fortunately, I have a very understanding partner. Very supportive.
You do, and you are fortunate.
Yeah.
I was with my ex back then, and
I told you.
That's all I could say was like, it's menopause.
Right.
Because I was such a whack job.
But we talked about before how when I started in my industry, we both work in industries where, it's the good old boys,
right?
And male dominant. And I remember I was in my early 20s, and there were so many men, and these guys are, middle-aged, that would just complain about their wives and say horrible things. Like, oh, she's a bitch, and she's miserable, and she never wants to have sex. And I just thought, oh, she sounds terrible. And they're, like, leaving their wives for younger women and breaking their families apart and all this terrible stuff. And here I am at that age now, and I'm going, oh, my God, these poor women were going through menopause. Nobody talked about it.
Nope.
No, but the men had no idea. They had no idea. You know what I mean?
Well, and it's funny that you say that because midlife crisis that term has always been associated with men.
Right.
In the past, right?
Yeah. They buy the Harley, they get a tattoo,
exactly.
They get a young girlfriend.
Now, I was going to say, get the young girlfriend. But I don't think it has ever been associated, perhaps until now, to women.
Right.
And my goodness, and we all know in this day and age that we pretty much rule the world now, right?
Oh, yes.
Where we're not these passive,
right.
Women, but not only do we raise our children, we have careers, we take care of our house, and the list just goes on and on and on. So it's no wonder that we are now more than ever, perhaps, are experiencing midlife crisis.
Right.
With health and menopause and hormones and what have you. But
and
just
I'm going back to
leaving.
Raising your children.
Yes.
I feel like that kind of used to stop when they became adults.
Right.
Quote, unquote.
Yes.
And I don't think that's the case anymore.
No.
Because even though our children, turn 18, 19, 20, whatever, they may go off to college, they may not, they may just move out, they may stay home for a while.
Right.
I think parents are still so much more involved than they used to be.
I agree. I totally agree.
At that age, 100%. And so I think it's still...
Or they move back home.
It's an extension
or don't leave.
of parenting. It just doesn't ever really stop. And I don't think that was really the case. It was kind of like, okay, you're an adult, bye.
Yeah.
And
I remember I
couldn't
wait to get out of my house when I was younger.
Me too.
I couldn't wait. And I left at an early age. And
yeah, I did too.
But nowadays, I still have my youngest who's 23 next month.
Yeah, I still have mine.
Still lives at home, and I'm fine with that. It's just sad that nowadays she can't afford to live on her own.
Crazy.
Everything is so expensive.
Yeah,
from rent to, if you have a car payment, or she just got her car out of the shop. Little Miss had to have a Mercedes, even though Mom said no.
Right.
Came out with a $2,000 bill. And now
unfortunately,
those
cars just don't go forever.
Yeah. I thought it was a German tank, and it's not. But with a car payment, and then if she had to pay for her own food,
Utilities. Yeah.
Yeah. Even with a roommate, she would be struggling. Right?
It's
with what she makes, you know. So
gone are the days of finding a nice little apartment for $600 a month.
I know. I know, right? And the sad thing is that the wage level hasn't
it hasn't caught up.
It hasn't caught up at all.
It's
sad
terrible.
but true. Thank you for joining us on Let's Talk Midlife Crisis.
If you'd like to join the conversation, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We would love to hear your comments.
And join us next week for your seat at the table.